Welcome to the Medical Device Made Easy podcast. Here is Munir Lazouzi from easymedicaldevice.com, and today we will help you within your risk management and specifically with a methodology that a lot of people are using for risk management, which is called FMEA. We'll let you know what means those acronyms mainly. We will really try to explain to you mainly what is also risk management and mainly why we need some of those methodologies. And for that, I have with me Rod Beuzeval from Leap Compliance. So, Rod, welcome to the Medical Device Made Easy podcast.
Hi, Manir. Good to see you again. How you doing?
Good, thank you. So, I hope, you'll be really convincing enough to explain why FMEA is bad for risk management. But before that, can you make just an introduction of yourself so that people know more about you?
Sure, absolutely. My name is Rod Beuzeval, and I have been working in the pharmaceutical and medical device industry. Oh, I think it's even longer than my profile suggests. I think it's 26 years plus now. And I have been heavily involved in regulatory and quality for medical devices. And risk management is a topic that is close to my heart.
Okay, Rod. So thanks again for your introduction. So can you explain to us now what we hear on the title of this episode mainly? So about FMEA. So for people that have no clue what we are talking about, what is an FMEA? What means FMEA?
Sure. So FMEA stands for Failure Mode and Effect Analysis, and it is a very widely used risk management tool, which effectively it does what it says on the tin. It looks at the failure modes and then goes on to analyze the effects of those failures. It's used in automotive, aerospace, military, other process industries. It's very, very common. And it's been around for a very, very long time as well, from the 1940s. So it's very well established. Lots of people that are involved with risk management know and have heard of FMEA.
So when we say FMEA, this is like just a methodology for
Yes,
this. So are there other methodologies or it's the only one that is existing?
there's lots of different methodologies that you can use, lots of tools. Some popular ones are things like fault tree analysis, which is where you define a top event. So something has failed normally, and then you break it down underneath to see how has that failed, what has caused that failure. So what you end up doing is you define what looks a bit like a tree, because you're breaking down different options with what could have caused it. Could it be this? Could it be this? This and this could cause the top event. And so that is often combined with what's called event tree analysis. And event tree analysis looks at the effects of that top event. So say you've got failure of something, the fault tree analysis looks at the root cause, and the event tree looks at what could possibly happen. And when you combine them together, it makes a bow tie, and so it's called bow tie analysis.
Okay.
Other things as well, things like HAZOP, hazard and operability studies, they're really useful, particularly for process. So if you're making medical devices or making any other items, then you can look at what can too much of something or too little of something or not doing something as part of the process, what impact will that have? You've also got HACCP or HACCP, hazard analysis and critical control points. Again, that's really useful for identifying key elements of particularly processes where you need to focus on controlling an element. And you put in place control plans to make sure that the resultant product is exactly to specification.
Unearth the pulse of the medtech world with MedTech Conf, a dynamic platform featuring global events on medical devices, biologicals, IVD, and pharmaceuticals. Stay informed, stay ahead, connect, share, and elevate your knowledge. Become an official sponsor. Make your event shine on the map. MedTech Conf, your key to the medtech universe. Remember, the future is now, and it's at your fingertips with MedTech Conf.
So here, as I said, we are in the context of risk analysis. And inside this context, we have those tools, FMEA, HACCP, FTA, etc., etc. Can we see it like a toolbox where
Absolutely.
if you have a screw that is a X screw, then you have to use a X screwdriver. You have a line screw, so it's a normal screwdriver, etc. So it depends of. I mean, you cannot use everything with any kind of risk that you have with your company. So maybe there are some methodologies that are specific to some elements. Like for example, HACCP, I see that a lot in substance companies, like pharma companies, also that people that are using those kind of things. So are there those kind of intention also for some of those methods?
Sure. And you're dead right, Munir. Yes, they have their particular strengths. So, as hazard and operability, HACCP, very good for process. The fault tree analysis is really good for equipment and other devices to really understand root causes. FMEA tends to be used for a product, particularly with things like design FMEA. And I will talk later on in the podcast about the different types of FMEA
Yeah.
medical device manufacturer can use, because it is, quite frankly, it's kind of a multi-tool
Yeah.
in respect of the tool analogy. So you can modify it to be used in different scenarios. And I think that's why FMEA is really popular with medical device companies. But you really need to understand the limitations and the pitfalls with using FMEA.
So just explain to us now the title. Why FMEA is bad then? So because
Okay. Yeah.
I am also using FMEA on some risk management. Yes, it's really looking like a versatile tool with a lot of possibilities. We talk about DFMEA, PFMEA, UFMEA for user.
Yeah.
What else? I mean, we can invent a lot of acronyms for FMEA because you can use it for a lot of things. So why then is it bad, and why then everybody is using it then?
Yeah, and that's why I think I really wanted to, discuss this, because I see it all the time in medical device companies where they're using a strict FMEA. So they'll get an FMEA template and they will use it as per the template. Now, this template is for all industries and it will work across the board, whether you're making cars or medical devices. It will work. But we have a standard, EN ISO 14971 for Europe, which is based on the international standard 14971. And that actually defines the requirements for risk management for medical devices. And that's where the problem lies. It's not a problem per se, but you just need to understand that FMEA doesn't meet all of the requirements of the standard. And so that is where the title is FMEA bad coming from, because if you just use FMEA from a template that you found, then you will not be meeting the requirements of the standard.
So the standard itself, because we have also this misunderstanding when you look at the ISO 14971, it's not obliging you to use any methodology. So it's just telling you you should do an analysis, you should do a collection of information or identification of harm, of all those hazards, etc. Find mitigation, etc. But it's not giving you any methodology. Even if in the annex they are giving you some kind of information, but it's
Yeah,
information only. So this is really where sometimes the mistakes arrive when people say, "Oh, you should use FMEA."
correct. Exactly that. And FMEA is a very convenient tool. It's very easy to understand and to use, but there are some things which you really need to consider. So, for example, the title FMEA, failure modes. Now, when you look at what the standard requires, you actually have to consider hazards and risks,
Yeah.
not just in failure mode, but in normal use and also in foreseeable misuse, which the FMEA tool doesn't drive you to consider. It only asks you to think of ways it can fail. So medical devices inherently will have some level of risk just to be used in their normal manner. in accordance with their intended purpose. So we immediately, that's one thing that we're missing out on, is considering the risks and hazards in normal use. And there's more.
Yeah, exactly. So
so when you look at effects analysis as well, the effects analysis, depending on whether you're looking at a design FMEA or a process FMEA, don't necessarily make you think of people and property and the environment. And the standard asks you to consider the harm to people, property, and environment. So when you look at FMEA from a design perspective, as an example, you may just be looking at, well, how does this part fit with this part? And what are the problems with the interface between those two parts? So, and that's actually something that's happened very recently, which I'll tell the story in a minute once I've finished going through the list of other things that you need to consider. Also, FMEA does consider something called detection. So when you are assessing that failure mode, you also look at how easy that is to detect that failure mode. Now, when you actually look at 14971 and the process that it takes you through, it doesn't consider detectability to estimate that level of risk. And so, again, a lot of companies I see are using detection to lower their initial estimation of risk. And then they're saying, well, we don't need to do anything else, which is not the case. It's not what the standard is asking you to do. So detectability is another thing where FMEA may send you down the wrong path if you're trying to comply with 14971.
So just when you are saying all this, I'm thinking, because I have a project actually where we are doing risk management. We are using the FMEA method, but we apparently, because I have now to look again, I have maybe to check again, what is the original FMEA thing? Because for me, we have included all what you are saying, like, and it's maybe a customization of the FMEA to make it more broad, because we have included all the harm, hazard, etc., not detectability, but assessment, how you will assess all this. And we have removed the column of detectability because we said, I don't need that, so we removed that. So we have really customized it per what you are saying now. So I will say, I have really to go back maybe to check what was the original FMEA, as you said, used by automotive, etc. Because maybe this was the reason. Because we when we make the analysis, we say yes, this is not clear, so let's include the column, let's include this column, let's remove that column, etc. to make it more fit to really the project and to the product, etc. So now I'm curious. I will go back later to check that.
In terms of original FMEA, you have a failure mode, you have what can cause that failure mode, you have the effect of that failure mode, and it considers it in terms of severity, occurrence, and detection.
Okay.
So we do the same thing with 14971. We consider the probability and the severity, but we don't consider detection in the initial estimation of the level of risk.
Okay.
So in terms of the actual what you're doing, Munir, that's exactly what I would recommend, is modifying the FMEA to actually be compliant to 14971. And there's other things that you need to consider as well. So, for example, 14971 asks you to consider the hazardous situation. So not just the failure mode and the effect, but the interim piece as well of what situation will we get ourselves into where a hazard will be presented. And so we need to consider that. So we have to add a column in our FMEA to consider hazardous situation. The other thing as well with respect to the probability of harm occurring is that FMEA simply considers the ultimate likelihood that effect will happen. Whereas in 14971, it's a little bit more complicated because we have two probabilities to consider. So the probability of a hazardous situation occurring, and then the probability that hazardous situation will actually go on to cause harm. So during training, when I'm training on risk management, I always like to use the analogy of swimming with sharks.
Yeah.
Okay, so just because you're swimming with sharks doesn't mean you're going to get hurt.
Yeah.
Okay, and we've got control measures in place, like the cage that we go in and things like that. So the hazardous situation doesn't always consider harm. And when we look at probability, we have to factor in those two elements, which is, again, is something 14971 asks us to do. We have a hierarchy of control measures as well. So 14971 asks us to consider safety by design and safe manufacturing.
Yeah.
Then it moves on down to protective measures, and then information for safety and training, none of which appear in terms of FMEA. It doesn't have a hierarchy of controls.
When I listen to it, I say, oh, we are good because we are. I mean, because we know that on the risk management ISO 14971, they say you have only three methodologies for mitigating the risk. Is like, or you safety by design, and you say you change the design. Second, which is a hierarchy also, which is second, you are making an alert system so that it's really a helping thing. And third, last, and really, if there is no other choice, you put it in the instruction for use or you put it in documentation for information, etc. But yeah, this is the thing that yes was not also existing in the original document, and we have also to include that. So yeah. I'm happy to hear that.
yeah, absolutely. And the list goes on, Munir.
Yeah.
So many more things that you need to consider. One thing as well is when you do put a control measure in place, you need to verify that it has been implemented and it has been effective. Again, that's not really a requirement of FMEA. You just need to rescore that level of risk. Overall residual risk we need to assess as well. So we take a step back and we look at the completed risk management file and we say, okay, overall, with respect to all of our residual risks that we've got left, does our benefit outweigh that risk? And that's another thing that we have to consider is the benefit, which FMEA doesn't even mention. There's just so much more to it. I mean, I could go on for hours.
Yeah, no, I can. But I think we really understand this topic, and really, I think it's even clearer for me now that because I said I'm really curious to see what looks the FMEA original FMEA table because it looks really short in comparison to what we are using now.
Absolutely.
And my question is mainly for this FMEA method. It's something that we are using a lot, and maybe a lot of people that are listening now are also customizing that to meet the requirements. But is there existing already a method that is complying with all what you said now, and that is maybe more suitable for medical products and following ISO 14971, or none at all? Hey, just a second. Do you need a EU, Swiss or UK representative? Then choose Easy Medical Device. We can represent you and also become your importer. Contact us at eo@easymedicaldevice.com.
Not really. What most people will do is just as you've done, Munir, is modify an FMEA template to comply with the standard. And that is what I would say. I've seen a lot of companies' risk management files, and I would say that 99% would do that. So the other 1% would use something like a modified fault tree analysis, again, somehow considering normal use and foreseeable misuse into that as well. But that's very, very rare. So what people do is they will use a modified template, and as you say, it starts off really short, and then by the time you've actually converted it to be compliant, it's very, very long with many columns. But that is definitely what you should be using. I mean, there are some examples of software, but again, they can take a lot of time to populate all of the information in. So most people that I have seen their risk management files, it operates on something like an Excel spreadsheet or other template, something like that. Okay.
So as we said, to summarize a bit, so we can use whatever method we want. Maybe we have to customize it really to fit with the requirements of ISO 14971. Using it as is maybe not the right methodology because it's not containing all the information. And we have really to understand really the ISO 14971 so that we can really make the best out of this tool. Because the point here is that when you are audited by an auditor that really understand ISO 14971, understand FMEA and understand all this, it can really pinpoint those elements And this can be maybe a minor nonconformity because you are still really gathering all the information, but it can also raise to a major nonconformity if you are not really finding all the answers to the ISO 14971. So it's really something important that we are talking about here, that yes, consider FMEA as is if you know the original method, but understand that it's not compliant to all the requirements of ISO 14971. I suppose you can use FMEA and additionally use another table or another document for that, but it's more work, if I can say. It's more work to keep compliance with the ISO 14971.
Absolutely, and I do actually recommend using FMEAs in certain circumstances, and I'll tell you that story that
Yeah.
I alluded to. So I'm working with a company at the moment, and they have mandated this template for use for all device risk assessment. Now, they have a product currently going through the initial design concepts, and so they've started to do their risk management, and they are looking at the risk management file for this product, and they're trying to just do the design elements of understanding the risks with the design. So effectively, can we make it? Can we achieve these tolerances? Do these components fit together? So really looking at just the design risk, not the actual finished product risk. And they're trying to use this template that has been generated for the finished product. And it is very awkward because conceptually it's difficult to think about what harm that's going to have to the patient and make it work for what they want it to do. So I do actually recommend having a template which you can use for the finished product, but also using a standard FMEA template where its use is best. So for example, design, you can then look at the form, fit and function of the design from a very simple risk perspective. You can look at software risks very simply. You can look at usability risks, and these can all feed into building that knowledge and building that hazard analysis for the final, the hybrid FMEA, as I'll call it. So I do still recommend using an FMEA template because this company is struggling with a single template that doesn't work for them. And it's about making it work.
As you said, maybe customization is really important and understanding what it, because now I am thinking now the concept of, as you said, the alert, the three methodologies of mitigation for design, safety by design, or alert, or instruction for use. This is fitting with the design, but it's not fitting with the production, if I can say, or not fitting with some cyber security things, or etc. So it's something that has to be assessed also. Is it really something that is matching with the requirements? I suppose detectability, for example, is fitting with production also. Can I detect that before it goes out of on the field? So this is something, maybe a column that I will add just for production risk, but not for design risk also. So there are a lot of things like that. As you said, it should be smart. It should not be just one template for one shoe fit everybody. It's like a smart tool that is go for why you are using that. And this makes it also a good point, I think, for auditors that are auditing you, because they say, oh, they are not just using it for like ticking the box. They are really using it for the purpose of this exercise.
Yeah, absolutely. Use the right tool for the job. That's going back to the analogy of the toolbox. And you mentioned process. Detectability in a process is actually very important because naturally the process will have elements of detection in there. So, for example, you may have a checkweigh station as part of the process manufacturing line. You may have vision systems. You'll do in-process inspections and things like that. So naturally, by setting up that production line, there's already things there which will pick up problems with production. And so, for example, a PFMEA, I absolutely advocate having detectability put back into that particular template. So it is about using the right tools for the job and just making sure that the file that you present to an auditor is based on 14971 and you're not just using FMEA for the reasons that we've already spoken about.
Yeah, I completely agree. So you at Leap Compliance, you provide training, I think, for people on that, huh?
Yes, we do. We actually have a risk course coming up. And if some of the things that we've spoken about, like hazardous situations and probability, this probability of the hazardous situation occurring to the harm, and if you're not sure about any of that, or you're not sure that your company has got the best process in place, then we offer a training on talking and discussing all these points, making sure that you're compliant with 14971, and also offering best practice tips, because you can make something really cumbersome and it's very difficult to use. And we don't want that. Things are hard enough with medical devices already and all the documentation. So we want to make it as streamlined but as compliant as possible. And that course is coming up soon.
And I think it's important because I see a lot of people that are just buying some books about risk management. So, which is not a problem about that. It's just about between the theory and the practice. So having maybe somebody to talk with that had practiced that and knows about some projects, etc., has more value than just reading the methodology and trying to apply it. I made myself the mistake, I think, if I remember, when I started at the beginning of my career as a trainee, so I had to do this FMEA for a company, and I made it like a big thing, like, yes, let's do that. It was really a catastrophe at the end because I just tried to follow the book, if I can say, but at the end, people that were in the room doing the brainstorming with me were not in the same, I mean, didn't understand the methodology, so at the end it was like more a chaos for this. And I remember again my master of the trainee that I had, that was saying to me after he looked at me being in the catastrophic situation, if I can say, and after the meeting we had a session where he said to me, "What have you done wrong? What should you take, etc." So I remember that. So it's why now I have really a good relationship with the risk management, because I learned from it and I know how to do it.
Yeah.
But it's something that people should learn. So having a training like the one from Leap Compliance can be more valuable than just buying a book and reading that, because I've done it. It didn't work. I mean, it worked a bit, but it didn't work. But yeah, having somebody to talk to, show maybe your case, get your some advice so you don't make the same mistake as me, can be really a great thing.
Absolutely. And it's an opportunity to ask questions as well. It's not just a training where you sit and listen and don't do anything. We actually practice the tools, and it's an opportunity to ask questions, because there's a lot of questions which always around benefit risk analysis and things like that, which we go into. And how do you do that, and what techniques you can use. So yeah, it's a really good opportunity to just get practice and get any questions answered.
Great. So I will put all the details about Leap Compliance on the show notes. I will put also some other links and episodes that we have made previously on ISO 14971, so that you have also maybe some more information about this ISO, not FMEA, but ISO specifically. So I don't hesitate to contact Leap Compliance, mainly if there is any questions related to ISO 14971. Anything else, Rod?
No, I think just, risk management is a fantastic tool if you use it correctly in terms of the standard. Don't be afraid of it either. It's something that can bring real value to your products. So I think that's just the closing statement. And just to answer the question, is FMEA bad? Not really. You just got to use it properly.
Exactly. As I said, it's just a tool if you use it with the wrong at the wrong time, or with the wrong environment, or wrong project or case. Yeah, it will not work correctly. It will just be a ticking box project, but it's not really what we are trying to do here. Okay, Rod, it was really a pleasure to have you. Thank you again for all the information and things that you provided. I put everything on the show notes, so people just go on the show notes and find all the information about Rod. And if you have any question, you can put also your question on the system, on the YouTube or on the web page, etc. Okay, so Rod, thank you very much, and I wish you a nice day.
Thank you, Mia. You too.
Bye.
Thanks, bye.